The rest of the three guys in the first segment can come up. So as I mentioned, we have two panels after this where we're going to go over two different topics. This first one is going to be all about analytics, a lot of the things we just alluded to, the importance in tracking, analyzing, using big data to your favor and to do all the kinds of things, whether it be in that marketing, lead scoring context or in more operational context, lots of different applications for how that's happening. So we're going to hear from three leaders in the space to find out really the how they're going about doing that. So John, we're going to start with you. First, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Marchex.
Sure. My name's John Busby. I'm the Senior Vice President at Marchex, running a group called the Marchex Institute. We're a group of in-house analysts and data scientists that help customers understand the phone calls driven from their advertising. And we also publish a lot of research on the subject. For those of you unfamiliar with Marchex, if you don't mind, hit the next slide, Mike.
That's what I'm trying to do here.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry. Well, we're very focused on advertisers getting the most return from their media purchases and their advertising. We have two products that help advertisers do that. One is our analytics platform, a call measurement platform called Marchex Call Analytics. To give you a sense of scale, about every quarter, give or take, 100 million calls are routed through that platform. And then we also have the Marchex Call Marketplace, which is a pay-per-phone call advertising network. So businesses that recognize the value of phone calls can say to themselves, I want more, and leverage our network that way.
Nice. So one of your differentiators, I feel, is technological chops and really strong data science. And really, those 100 million calls that you mentioned really necessitates strong technology to scale that through automation in some cases. Walk us through some of those challenges and how you're set up to tackle them.
Sure. This slide is intended to show some of the problems we're trying to think through now and some of our solutions for these. Having worked with clients and having a really big data set at our disposal, we've noticed a couple of themes that are really important to our customers. One is, and I think this one's really important on the local level, is how do we actually save time when someone wants to analyze a phone call? Like imagine if you're the head of marketing for an auto dealer, call comes in, you may want to monitor yourself whether or not that call was a good call or a bad call, but it takes a lot of time if your dealership receives tons of calls. So we're thinking about that. Beyond that, how do you score calls or get good information about calls without human intervention? For those of you marketing service providers that drive hundreds of thousands of phone calls, the human element just becomes impossible to deal with. The third is all this type of conversational analytics is really great and very important unless your client is someone like Bank of America, or in a local example, marketing service providers for doctors, and call recording simply isn't an option. So we're thinking about that. And then not everybody wants to use a call analytics platform. Instead, they want to use the data that comes out of such a platform and the tools that they use to optimize media. So those are the sorts of things that we're thinking through now and beyond to 2015.
Now, some of the ways that's playing out, or one of the ways that's playing out, is your Call DNA product. You've branded it as that. I like to say you guys are mapping the call genome. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
Yeah, we call the product Call DNA because we think that that the output or the visual map of a call can look like a unique DNA strand, and each call in its own way is a little bit different. Just to orient you on what you're looking at, we've sort of popped out a part of our user interface, and the product monitors speech and silence, ringtones, that sort of thing, uttered by the caller and the agent, and displays it in that visual map. So the purple there, I think if that's purple, is the agent or an IVR talking.
Would it help if I go to this next one that blows it up, or were you?
Oh yeah, sure, that's fine. So this is an example of a call that maybe by conventional analysis might look like a good call, and the reason for that is a 2.5-minute call to a local business, so that seems pretty good. And then there are a lot of words spoken in the call, as you can see by the purple and blue strands there. But actually, when you go into the call and look at these various elements, you find that there was a notification that a call recording occurred, someone selected an IVR, they're transferred, they go to another IVR, a consumer asks a question, they're routed to the right department, service and sales, and then ultimately the caller hangs up after being on hold for a while. And it was a call where maybe many words were spoken, but they weren't actually, it wasn't actually the type of call that an advertiser wants to receive. And so the purpose of this product is to leverage the millions of calls that we have to identify this type of pattern and say, okay, this is clearly an IVR, voicemail, hang up, or a call that you need to take action against without any type of human interaction.
Looks like a call I had with Comcast last week, except for it was just one big black bar, probably. No, this is interesting too, and it's interesting to note that this isn't necessarily to be able for people to eye it and say this is a good call, but it's a format that's conducive to your machine learning, as you mentioned, correct?
Yep.
So tell us about real-time call DNA. I think this is very interesting because it's swung the door open for you guys as an addressable market in so many different verticals for which there were kind of legal hurdles to recording calls.
Yeah. For many of the first couple of years that I worked on this problem, we'd approach an advertiser and say, if we could just record phone calls, we could tell you everything you needed to know about your media buy. And for certain types of businesses, that's just a no-go. And so we developed, or I should say we innovated upon Call DNA to be able to produce this outcome of a call with ever having to record the call. So it's monitoring and measuring these little bits and pieces of the conversation and producing a visual map and suggesting an outcome of the call without the business or advertiser having to take on the risk of recording the call. And so it has a lot of really great applications in some of the industries that you see here. And one of the things we've also noticed is there are many calls that are local business in nature that aren't like a regulated industry like healthcare, but a consumer's providing payment information. And so it's an opportunity to mitigate risk for the advertiser to use a product like Call DNA instead of a conventional recording.
This is interesting too. As I mentioned, it increases the addressable market for Marchex, but also from the perspective of these industries, it also vaults their ability to now take advantage of these tools where otherwise they were under the legal ramifications of doing so. Are you sensing that, by the way, in the receptiveness in these industries? Are they excited now that you've kind of lessened that burden for them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think with
it is fairly new, I recognize.
With all of the new data that you can get from phone calls, I know there's some amazing data that we'll see from Log My Calls and CallRail. Is that sometimes it's a really new thing for an advertiser to wrap their head around, or a business to wrap their head around, and so we're trying to explain how this can be leveraged to really optimize media.
You're in an educational role, I imagine.
Yeah, I think we're at a time in the market where everyone's recognizing that calls are important due to the amount of money they're spending to drive them on Google, but still in terms of how to use the data and how to think about it, those are still new concepts in many ways.
So here's the output, or one output of Call DNA showing, here's the ratio of conversion and all the call components. Do we want to talk about that or move on to the benchmarking?
Yeah, you can move on to benchmarking.
Because the question is this a good call? And I think an important question is, that varies per industry and the benchmarks they set.
Yeah, I think that that
you set for them.
The pie chart was a nice way that we started thinking about saying, okay, what percentage of these calls are good calls or bad calls, similar to the stat that you were showing before that said 19% of calls are good and the rest have problems in some other ways. And so automated call scoring can help with that. But customers came to us and had two challenges. One is we need to get a little tighter on which calls are actually conversions, but then I need it tied to specific media buys and actually in the tools that I use to optimize media to make this really useful for me. Otherwise, it creates kind of a data challenge. And so this is just how we conceptually think about creating a conversion model for a customer, we use statistical modeling, either by someone in my group or someone else at the company, plus automated scoring. And then we can evaluate all these DNA strands to come up with the likelihood of a conversion for a call. And one of the things we might look at is the ratio of speech between an agent and a caller, and the ratio of speech to silence. And there are really clear differences between converting and non-converting calls for many, many industries. And we've created a number of these models, and so what I've realized is that you need to do some custom work for everybody, but the amount of time it takes to create a new model decreases as you work with more customers.
Mm-hmm. And the more you do this, the firmer benchmarks that can be set in very specific or even narrow verticals or variables for any given business. So that's great. You have a quick case study to walk us through this, if you could.
Yeah, this is an example of Elite SEM, which is an outstanding SEM agency based in New York. They've received accolades across the industry, and they use bid management tools like Marin in order to provide their clients with excellent results. And so it was important to them to receive our data and our analytics for our platform, not through our user interface, but through the product that they were using. And just by leveraging that, they were able to improve their lead qualification rate for a financial services client by more than 55%. So
nice.
Just, I think, a good proof point of if you make the investment to call analytics, you can provide a much greater return.